Engage.
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 Old man Picard is here to set you straight.
Get off my lawn.
Get off my goddamn lawn. He's a little
Get
more.
Get off my bridge.
And we're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet, boy, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. Star Trek: The Next Generation is our bag at the moment. We're in season 5.
Wow.
One little...
Is it?
Yeah, man.
Wow, that's fascinating.
And in 2 years, we did it so far. It's 2 years to get to season 5.
Wow.
And we record semi-week. Like, we don't record every week. But,
no,
like, pretty much.
Not at all.
Yeah, almost.
Well, you do. I'm not.
Yeah, I meant we as the show.
Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah. I thought you meant we as in you and I. Okay.
When we're on the air and I say we, it means the show.
It's the royal we. Okay, gotcha.
Yes, yes, right. It is. The majestic...
majestic we.
Yes, that's true.
Gotcha.
Welcome back, Doctor. It's so nice to have you.
Thank you. I always like to return for the Dr. Crusher episodes.
Oh, well, you missed a really good Dr. Well, no, I guess it wasn't Dr. Crusher, it was Riker. I just did the Riker the androgynous species episode with my friend from work.
Shucks.
And it was his first episode of Star Trek ever, and I'm not sure.
Shucks.
I'm not sure
his last episode of Star Trek.
No, he actually we tied it into something very interesting that I'll go over just because I think you as a man of letters and history would be interested. When that episode came out, it meant to address homosexuality. And back then there was no real ever like idea or talk or popularity to the notion of a non-gendered society, like people who don't even identify or don't want to be identified with a gender. But fast forward 30 years later, or less 25 years later from that episode, it's a thing. Being non-binary, it's a real thing. And so true. Star Trek, though they weren't trying to tackle that subject, but by creating a metaphor to tackle the subject with, they ended up creating a real, or like predicting a real a societal issue.
Interesting. And is that what it was? They're non-gendered? Is that what it was?
They don't. They're genderless. The aliens, and of course Riker's power of love to bring out the gender.
Brought out the female in one of them.
That's the power of Riker. Okay. I think he would bring the female out in any of us if he wanted to. I guess that's Sean Connery. Sean Connery has that power, but let's not go there. That's delving too deep into the to our.
Did Sean Connery meet the Doctor, the 12th Doctor, or the 13th Doctor in?
Yeah,
in an episode that we didn't see, and
he must have met Peter Capaldi, and then it forced him to regenerate as a woman. So there you go. That's the real reason.
Bring the female out, Capaldi. Doctor, I will bring the female out of you.
So since you brought it up, I just have to say that I saw it, and that's all.
No, you brought it up.
I know you. I did.
So this episode. Which has a bit of time, but it has a temporal mechanics in it.
Very much so. It's a very interesting episode. In fact, I think cause and effect. Oh yeah, did we not say what it is yet?
No.
Bad Starfleet boy.
Cause and effect.
Cause and effect. And so, do you want to do the summary for this one, sir? Since you
this is an easy summary.
I know, it's so easy.
The pre-title teaser starts with the Enterprise in jeopardy, and
all hands abandon ship. All hands abandon ship.
And yeah, basically that's it. Yeah, the ship is in jeopardy. Something's happening. The audience is unsure of what's going on. They're trying a maneuver. It doesn't work, and Picard orders all hands abandon ship, and the Enterprise explodes. It's the best opening of any Next Generation episode in history.
It's true. It's true.
It really is.
That was a and then
that was crazy.
Post credits, you get a little poker game, and you're like, "What the heck? What's going on here?"
Right. Yes. You start with a poker game, and
so that
Riker.
By the way, speaking of Riker, this episode was directed by Jonathan Frakes.
The great Jonathan Frakes.
Yes, we adore.
Directed the worst and the best Next Generation movies. And so they're playing poker, and Crusher is called away to sickbay because Geordi
he actually directed the best and the worst Next Generation movies.
Isn't that what I said?
You said the worst and the best. But it's if you go in the chronological order, it's the best and then the worst. He was following a tale of two cities.
Either way you say it, either chronological.
A tale of two movies. It was the best of films. It was the worst of films. Message, Doctor. None that
I'm aware of.
All right, sorry. I'm gonna stop now.
Okay.
You can do your summary.
So, anyways, Crusher realizes as the day goes on, she gets a little sense of something, and
the first time she gets that sense is with Geordi when she's examining Geordi, who's getting
like, "Are you sure we haven't done this before?" And Geordi's like, "Oh, it must be deja vu." And she's like, "Oh, okay, maybe." And the day goes on, and we eventually lead back to the events that the episode that we saw at the beginning of the in the pre-titles, where the Enterprise explodes, and we go back to it. The Enterprise explodes, and you cut to commercial, which is great. So at the first commercial break, once again, we see the Enterprise destroyed. So we come back from the commercial break, and we're starting again. And now we, as the audience,
we have a few clues. So one of the things that's happening to Dr. Crusher, she's hearing voices right before going to bed, and then she wakes up from it. And they were able to determine in one of the later iterations, they were actually able to hear the the all hands abandoned ship order.
Yeah, Geordi is like somehow, his visor is somehow picking up something
off of this temporal. Oh, and they're in the Typhon expanse, which is kind of like a weird part of space to begin with. It's uncharted, anyways. Going
right, and well, anyways, I mean, I'm giving a brief summary.
Okay, that's fine. It's better than my 20-minute summaries.
So eventually they realize that they're stuck in some kind of time loop, and they come up with the idea that, well, let's try and leave a message for ourselves in the next loop, because what ends up what's happening is that the Enterprise keeps reaching a point where they encounter a temporal anomaly, and out of the anomaly comes a Soyuz class starship, and it kind of just hit. I guess it collides past the one of the nacelles of the D, and the D just spins away.
We're gonna do a little.
Please recreate that.
We can actually here's what's happening. So, here's the D, right? And then instead of, unfortunately, I don't have a
Soyuz.
Bozeman model. No, it's the Reliant is actually a Miranda class. This one's kind of different,
but it's adapted from it, right?
It is adapted from it. So, anyways, here this ship is going to represent
the Bozeman.
The Bozeman, right? So it comes out of the anomaly, and it's headed straight for the Enterprise, and they use the
they're going to use the tractor beam.
They use the tractor beam to push it out of the way. But unfortunately, as that happens, it scrapes against the nacelle, causes it, and keeps going. And then the nacelle kind of starts to chain react, and then all of a sudden it's like spinning like this, and then it's flying off into the distance. There you go. All right,
Now,
so we
what's
just recreated.
amazing is that action actually, because the the ship becomes unable to eject the warp core. Did you get that? That's
Yeah, it
amazing.
was a serious
It's a
problem when that.
serious that's a serious failure on the part of the designers of that ship, I think. A
Well,
lot went
no,
wrong.
the a lot went wrong to like not be able to eject the warp core, which is like a pretty crazy thing. So yeah, that's why the ship explodes.
So anyhow, in the last iteration, Data manages to send the number 3 to
Right.
himself, and it keeps popping up, and then we as the viewer suddenly realize, oh, this is different because 3 keeps popping up,
And it changes the
and
course. Yeah.
it changes the course, and we're wondering, well, how does 3 work factor into this? And what it is that Data notices because right before the Enterprise is going to is going to encounter the Bozeman, Picard says, "What, crew, give me ideas," and Riker suggests one thing, and Data suggests another, in order
And
to
they go with
avoid
Data's.
crashing. And they always go with Data because it's Data. Of course, you always go with Data, but he was wrong. So Data looks at the pips on Riker's shoulder, and he's like, "Oh, it's the 3 pips." So therefore, Riker's right. So he goes with Riker's idea, and they what they do is they depressurize the cargo bay, and that creates kind of a little push, and it's enough of a push that the Enterprise doesn't hit the Bozeman.
What's really cool about this episode is that ends the paradox or the time loop, right? But it's not quite established in the show, but the Enterprise, the first time it happened, the Enterprise probably is what's reinitiating the explosion from the Enterprise is probably what's reinitiating the time loop. And what's fascinating about that is, and I think you did watch this episode of Star Trek Discovery, is that in the Harry Mudd episode where he keeps traveling back in time and like trying to trying to discover the secret of the spore drive, what triggers his time loop is an explosion,
right?
And it causes time to rewind.
An explosion. Isn't it an explosion encountering the temporal anomaly, right?
Correct.
It's those 2 elements together, right?
It's those 2 elements together. So correct. So I think it's kind of cool that like these things are in Star Trek Discovery as well, which is even though
and what is that again? Are those short fan films? I don't know. I don't
know. We talked about the short film here on Starfleet.
I'm not aware of what it is you speak of. Anyhow,
all right.
Moving on. But then
Space Trek. I'm talking about Space Trek. You know that show Space Trek that's on TV? So anyways, they're restored to so they break the cycle.
and they run into an episode of Frasier.
Well, yeah, and then they run into the crew of the Bozeman, and I'm wearing, in their honor, my TOS film era.
Very good. That's true.
It's my leisure wear. My leisure wear is now.
Whoa.
And they inform them that they've been stuck in the loop. Well, they figure out through the through realigning with the temporal the time beacons in the quadrant that they've been in the loop for what, like 3 weeks or something like that. But then the 17 days, and then the Bozeman has been in that loop for 80
freaking years.
Years. Could you? Well, they don't even nothing. How could they? So that's what happens. Now we have the crew of the Bozeman here 80 years later, and I love that actually because they're a little slice out of Kirk, Kirk's time, of that Federation, and now they're here in the future. So it's yet adding another group of people to the time refugee crisis, which is occurring in the Federation.
Indeed.
There's Jillian. She's a time refugee.
That's right. You're right. Wow. Wow, they could form a superhero team.
The Guardians of the Temporal Galaxy. Well, you summed it up pretty accurately. I mean, there's not much to do, but it's a brilliant episode all the
It
same.
is. It really is.
Even with just such a simple story, and that all I think has to do with the cast. They just deliver
And the
beautifully, I think.
details. The
Yeah, and the
details.
details.
It's the details and also the direction. What I really loved about the episode is, you have a number of scenes being repeated throughout the episode, and Frakes does an excellent job of shooting them from different angles, and until you get to the final one where he's starting to use really extravagant angles. Because there's one, I don't know if you remember the one shot where it's just straight up from above, looking down on the
Yeah,
on the conference table, and we've never seen that shot
seen
before,
that.
ever.
Yeah, yeah,
Ever.
it's true.
And it adds attention to the scene, because it's the fact that you're looking down from above on these people and you see them all trapped on your screen. It forms, it gives this feeling of they are trapped, as they're trapped visually, and they're trapped in the plot.
It's
They're
true.
trapped in the time bubble and the time warp or whatever. And the direction was just phenomenal. He would he would also do, in order to make everything more interesting, you would have a sequence of events from one point of view, typically from Crusher, but then as the episode goes on, you'll see the same scene played out from Geordi's end. When Crusher is calling Geordi at one point in the middle of the night saying, "Oh, hey, I'm hearing voices," you typically see it from her point of view, but at one point you see it from Geordi's point of view, just to break up the monotony of that. And he did a
Right.
fantastic job with that. It
Yeah,
adds to the mood of the episode.
I 100% agree, and I like that, like just the temporal time space concepts that were being presented to that, like what just kind of like messing with the mind a bit with the idea of like what is deja vu.
Right,
When we're
something that we
like
can
we're
all identify
all
with. Yeah.
identify with, and then it makes you pause and think, oh, when I'm having those deja vu moments, what's really going on? So that was really brilliant on the part of the writers. I think, yeah, it's just like a really awesome science fiction-y episode. And then yes, for many fans, you have the captain of the Bozeman, who is played by Kelsey Grammer of Frasier fame. I wish there were more Cheers, and at the time I think Cheers was still running, if I'm not mistaken. So it might have been actually a Cheers crossover in a sense.
Maybe.
But
I don't remember.
but you read a book, Doctor,
I
that ties
did.
into this
There is,
episode?
well, there's I guess a semi sequel to this episode. It's called Ship of the Line, and it's actually found it came out in '97, and I actually remember checking it out from the public library. I was very excited because it was on the cover. It says the first voyage of the Starship Enterprise 1701-E.
Oh,
And I got very excited because obviously the E is a gorgeous ship, and I don't feel that she didn't have a proper introduction. She didn't have anything like
no,
the Enterprise
she
did.
has like a cool shot, and that, like barely.
Barely, barely, yeah,
It's true. It's true. We just kind of like
yeah,
pop in on the E out of nowhere.
yeah. But I actually unearthed my review from the Milky Way Mocha.
Ooh,
Long may it
wow.
rest in peace, the
It's
Mocha.
not that. What are you talking about?
The website.
Yes, but there's a book. It's now in
There is
print.
no, yes, there is, of course, the the zine,
the
the
zine.
print
Yes.
version of it. But I was rereading my. I'm staring at it right now. But I was rereading my review, and you realize you have somebody on your show who just doesn't like Next Generation. And but if you were to read this review, the person who wrote this review really does not like Next Generation. I was kind of surprised at how much ire I have against the
Oh,
show.
well, that shows me how your feelings were stronger. And I do recall from our many discussions that like that you were the biggest critic, perhaps.
I
No, I think
was,
perhaps
yeah.
you were among the the biggest critics. And I think that's what probably spawned my my love, like my deep
Is
love
it?
for TNG.
Are
It's
you trying
'cause
to
well,
compete with my?
I'm always I feel like we're always adversarial in our intellectual and entertainment pursuits. And so, so I always naturally take on the opposite to your there are times where we're aligned though.
Yeah, yeah. But I write something
Detective
here.
comes to mind.
Apparently, the plot of the novel deals with the fact that it takes place shortly after the destruction of the D, and believe it or not, and this is the thing that I mean, I don't know. I didn't write it in my notes, so I don't know why this is, but Captain Morgan Bateson, is in
Mm-hmm.
charge of the construction of the E,
Whoa!
and he's building it with Scotty.
Whoa!
So
Well, and
it's
the
Scotty.
Bozeman A is a sovereign class starship too. I looked up the Bozeman A. Anyways,
So
go on.
why would you put somebody from the 23rd century
That
in
hey,
charge?
that's why the E looks so beautiful,
Is it
if I may argue.
maybe?
I mean, it was the like the D is awesome and everything like that, but when the E was born, I
No,
was
the
like,
E is the best. The E
it's
is
a gorgeous
gorgeous.
starship. It's a
The
beautiful
E is
starship.
gorgeous. But anyways, so he is actually captain of the E.
You
Picard
mean,
has
well,
not
no,
been kept in the novel.
no, I
Picard has not accepted command. He does not know if he wants to command another ship, because his crisis is that he's lost two ships. He's lost the Stargazer, and he's lost the Enterprise.
the Enterprise D.
So he doesn't know if he wants command of a ship again. So the original captain, according to the novel, which of course we all know, we won't go into a discussion on the canon of novels, but for the purpose of this discussion, Morgan Bateson is in fact the captain of the Enterprise E, and he brings along his crew from the Bozeman, and they have great character names like Skip and
They have so the Memory Alpha has it completely wrong because I read the Memory Alpha thing, and in Memory Alpha it says that the Bozeman becomes a museum ship, and that they do in fact build a sovereign class replacement called the Bozeman A. So
yes,
that's that's the ship
that happens
that
at the
he
end
and
of this
his
novel.
oh, so because decides to take the A, the Enterprise
The
E,
E,
so Bozeman gets. You're saying he and his crew get the Bozeman A.
right?
Oh, gotcha.
But
Okay,
during the
gotcha.
novel, the Picard goes off to Cardassia with Worf and Crusher to solve something there, and then there's a Klingon who has been harboring revenge against Bozeman, actually for the events that lead up to this episode. The reason that the ship goes into the temporal anomaly is that they're leading Klingons away from Starbase 12,
Oh,
and it's all a ruse involving the original Enterprise, the Kirk and Company. So Kirk and Company have been are away from Starbase 12. So it's up to this guy to lead the Klingons away until the Enterprise can come back, and they run into this temporal anomaly. You know, in leading away the Klingons. Now they managed to destroy most of the Klingons, but this one guy is still left over, and he's been hanging his head in shame for 90 years. And when he learns that this guy is now in command of the ship of the line, the Enterprise E, he decides to come out and seek revenge, and that's the plot of the novel.
That's so crazy and complicated.
It is, and I give it a terrible
rating.
I just have to indulge and read these last few sentences. Because there's a thing. This is the thing that I hated most about the novel. Throughout the novel, Picard, because since he's like having this crisis, he keeps consulting holodeck recreations of The Enemy Within and The Balance of Terror to understand Kirk better. And it turns out, and I write, this is me writing back in whatever, 97, I write, the superiority of the old generation is further proven by having Picard's best all-time line, "The line must be drawn here," turn out to be a quote from Captain Kirk.
Oh the they did not do that.
Yes, they did do that. They did do that. Yes.
That's probably why the novels will remain outside canon for
Well, this novel will certainly remain off canon for me.
Yeah, how could you do that to poor Picard? Anyways, go on. But
right?
That's interesting. It's curious. It's
well,
curious,
I mean, my whole summation is that the I mean, this is back then. I was saying that Paramount just wasn't giving Next Generation what it needed to stand on its own. That they always kept going back to the crux of the crutch of the old generation. And and I write this other line that says, in a telling point, Diane Carey is the author, graphs the detached interest the Trek audience had in witnessing the destruction of the Enterprise D through Picard. The death of the Enterprise in Star Trek III was one of the most emotional and wrenching moments in Trek history, but the Enterprise D's demise was comparable to a zany car crash in Fox's wildest car chases, played twice to the delight of its audience. Picard,
we haven't even gotten to our film discussion of Generations. Now I know how you're gonna go on.
Picard, after the loss of two of his commands, also feels something amiss in being so heartless about the situation and resolves to change things for his third command, an echo of his promise to his crew at the end of the series finale. Of course, all these promises are as hollow as a dead Dyson sphere. That's me, folks.
Wow, Doctor. I forgot how.
What a purple prose I write, yeah. And then the final sentence is, with this negativity toward the second cast, it's hard to get excited for this novel's finale, where the rejoined crew set themselves for their next tour of duty together. Instead of growing excited for what lies ahead, one groans in realizing it's Star Trek Insurrection.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's it. That's enough of reading of my old review there.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's really good. But you bring up a really good point. TNG did in Generations, it's totally understandable. Actually, that's the problem, is that you get the impression that they destroyed the Enterprise D to create a more filmable starship, whereas the Enterprise, the original Enterprise refit, when it's destroyed, it is totally out of necessity for the story. So it's a good contrast.
Yeah, but you also you feel more emotion, obviously, in Star Trek 3 than you do in I mean, it's one of the highlights when the D crashes, but it shouldn't. It's a highlight for the wrong reasons. You enjoy seeing it
Right.
destroyed, and it's even played for a little bit for laughs because when it stops, it has that little, that moment where you just
Like
kind
a
of like,
little, like a rock, like a jolt. Yeah, like it rocks, kind of. Yeah.
right, and you have the little, yeah. So, but anyways, back to this episode.
Yeah, it's totally I think we just kind of covered a lot more than this episode warrants, which I'm really happy about because I forgot about the I didn't realize I forgot about how well you wrote. So that was a really nice remembrance there. So yeah, that's it. There's nothing else about this episode that I really have to say. I mean,
I
awesome
can.
performances, fantastic direction. Well, what else? What else is there?
Well, I mean, I like the details of it. The whole the way that the mystery is built up. You have Crusher hearing voices,
I
um,
Yeah,
which is
actually,
really spooky. When you
it
think,
is super spooky. But what I also like is that once she becomes aware of the phenomenon that's going on, and like one imagines that in between each iteration that we see, there's probably at least like 10 others, right? Because they were doing it for 17 days and we didn't see 17 iterations on screen, right?
right,
But what I found interesting was like she purposely moves. There's this concept of like trying to change time, right, throughout the whole episode, and she purposely moves her little glass of brandy or whatever it is every time so that she doesn't knock it over. But she somehow manages to knock it over every single
every
time,
single time.
and it creates this kind of like fatalist idea, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, of like no matter what you do, there is like this element of like no matter what you do, time's gonna happen the way it's supposed to. So really, what's go what can we actually do? So there's that.
Yeah, and that creates tension in the episode as well because
Mhm, mhm.
I mean, you keep getting each time you get to the commercial break, the Enterprise explodes. I mean,
I like how
it's
Data's
great.
totally weirded. Yeah, Data's totally weirded out when she predicts what cards in the
Yeah, during the poker game.
the
Yeah, I
poker
mean
game. Yeah, that
that
was
doesn't
cool.
compute well with him.
He's like totally forget. It's I don't know, like what other details, because at the moment I just can't I can't think of any, doctor.
I like I really like the scene where Crusher, the first time Crusher reaches out to the captain, and it's obviously the middle of the night,
That's right.
and she's like, it's less professional and more personal in the way she asks to see him, and then she's kind of there, on his his couch, and he's giving her what is it? It's not tea, it's something. I don't know what he's giving her, like some
Oh,
kind of,
his Aunt Adele's
yeah,
isn't it his Aunt Adele's recipe? Oh
it's
gosh.
recipe for nutmeg or something.
No, something like a milky drink, I think. Hold on.
Something, yeah. And it was just such a wonderful little character moment there between the two of them. Because really what she's saying is not, I mean, yeah, at that point it just sounds less than scientific what she's talking about. And
Right.
he's really being more
It was
friend.
a warm milk toddy. One of the ingredients was nutmeg, so you got it right.
Okay. But I really like the idea, I mean, it really shows the closeness that these characters have.
Well, that's another thing. When I did the discussion with my friend who it was his first episode, one of the things that like he caught totally was like how there are these like relationships between the characters that go a lot deeper, and he was like, but it was a little, he expressed that that was one point that was kind of difficult, was that like he didn't know what those relationships are. So I think that like for people who watch TNG from season 1 to season 5, there is actually uh, a lot of stuff there that you gain, but it's mostly relationships between the characters, not like necessarily like a overarching theme or arc, you know, or story arc, but there's definitely like a emotional arc that that is very well, like, that's matured at this point in the show, and like that you see casually, informally, just like it's just there, like the mojo, you know, between these characters. It's now at this point, it's just there. And so when you're watching it, you as the audience are also really invested in those kind of key emotional moments. So anytime we see Beverly and Picard together having an intimate moment, it kind of stirs these emotions of like, oh, you know, are they going to take this further, and like, you know, where's this going? And like there's an excitement also to that, and a tenderness like that you don't see Picard express with anyone else. And like, and Beverly challenges him in ways that no one else does too, which I really like.
Right, right. So I really appreciated that moment, and I like when Crusher is used more, and it's interesting they do use they she does seem to get used for these weird sci-fi mysteries. I mean, the other one that I love is the one where everyone's disappearing.
The bubble,
The
yeah,
which
that's
is
a
another
really,
bubble.
what is that saying? Is that saying like the doctor is the best equipped to solve these sci-fi capers? Is
Yeah, that's what it feels like. And let me tell you, if our show had happened, if we had gone ahead I forgot the name of the frickin' Pasteur. If we'd gone ahead with a Pasteur, trust me, there would have been sci-fi mysteries
well,
aplenty.
let me ask you a question. Is there something going on with the Crusher family? Like, because not, you know, obviously it wasn't like directly done or anything like that, but you know, Wesley's got all these kind of weird relationships with like, you know, the whole thing with the Traveler, and
There we
like,
go.
you
Right.
know,
Right. Where does that come from? I mean, it seems
yeah,
like
where does that come from?
she
It's a
has an almost Guinan-like quality
quality to her. It's true.
to pick out when something temporal is happening, and if we say, well, you know, that somehow has been passed on to Wesley and has been expanded in him, you know, I mean, who's to say? Yeah, there's something there.
I
There's
mean,
more.
maybe the first female doctor was not Jodie Whittaker.
Maybe it was Gates McFadden.
Interesting.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Doctor Who? uh, wow, that really went far out.
It did. It did.
For those of you hardcore Starfleet Boy viewers who made it this far into our discussion, we'd love to
That's
hear
fun.
your thoughts below about the timey-wimey stuff, space and time, and the Crusher family. That would be an interesting thing to see. And I don't know. I don't think there's, to my knowledge, that kind of idea hasn't really been fleshed out in any of the expanded Star
I
Trek
don't think
universe. But
so.
who knows? Because my knowledge of the expanded universe of Star Trek is very small, so
Yeah.
it could totally be out there.
Speaking of the expanded universe, I would like to share. I don't know if am I allowed to share? Um,
You're allowed to do whatever you want.
no, but I mean, no, but technically, am I allowed to? Am I allowed to share something on my screen with
I think
the?
so. Actually, you
Really?
can just, if you
Screen
hover your
share. Okay.
screen share, there it is. Yeah,
Okay. So if I
and
hit
then you have to
screen
choose,
share,
and then present to everyone when you choose your window or whatever it is you're doing.
because I have. Okay. Application window. Can I do application window? Here we go. Oh, indeed. All right. Do you,
Oh,
so this is from a comic book. The DC published a comic which kind of filled in a little gap right after the episode and right before the novel, in which,
hey,
yeah,
wait a second.
wait a
Go back
second.
to that shot of, see the D right there?
Yeah.
That's a hologram, isn't it?
It looks like. Yeah, it looks like. What
Okay, go on.
I don't know what it is you're trying to say with that.
Nothing. I'm just saying there's holograms in Star Trek. Uh,
Oh my. Anyways, this shows Scotty and this guy meeting, and that kind of sets up the idea that later Scotty is in charge of the Enterprise E along with him.
I'm really glad to hear that Scotty. By the way, yet another time refugee.
Exactly. That's why Troy recommends Scotty meet this guy because they're
And
both in the
Captain
same
Bozeman.
era. Right. Exactly.
Fascinating.
Precisely.
Very fascinating.
Even though
And
McCoy
then
is still alive, but whatever.
yeah. But then you also have the people that they like in season 3 or season 2, those people that they found on
Oh,
the
right.
in the cryo freeze, those yet more time refugees. There's like a lot of time refugees. I'm telling you, there's a time refugee crisis that hasn't been addressed in Star
There
Trek.
is. You're right. You're right.
And that
Maybe this should be an episode of Old Man Picard.
I think it's just like it totally should be. Well, since we're talking about the Bozeman, there is some kind of fascination on the part of the Star Trek kind of writers and the Bozeman, because in Generations, um, one of the ships that they mentioned that had to change course because of the Nexus, because of the Armagosa star exploding, is the USS Bozeman.
Oh, really?
So it just kind of implies that the Bozeman, either that one or the A, according to the novels, is still in that crew is just reintegrated into Starfleet.
Well, yeah. I mean, in the novel, they were.
The thing is that 80 years into the future for that crew also poses an interesting thing, because it's much like the Philadelphia experiment, because their friends must still be alive. Their children are still alive. So I wonder if the novel explored that. And had Star Trek
It does actually. It
okay.
there's,
Badly.
well, I mean, kind of tragically, there's one crewman who apparently his wife went looking for him in the Klingon Empire because it was just assumed that the Klingons kidnapped them, and she actually went into the Klingon Empire and got kidnapped herself and was returned back in several pieces, like her remains, because she died, behind enemy lines in some Aurora Pente or something. So there's a scene where one of that crewman is receiving the remains. So yeah, it's kind of it's a tragic. There's a tragic quality to this whole crew. And Next Generation seems to set up the idea that there's not a lot of happiness when you're a temporal refugee. Certainly, what happened to Tasha when she's not just a temporal refugee. She's an I don't know if you want to call it dimensional
refugee as well.
Refugee as well, and look what happened to her. So yeah, not and let's look at Spock.
Oh, he's a temporal and dimensional refugee as well.
As well,
temporal. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a whole man. This is
a temporal crisis, man.
Indeed.
It's the big crisis. It's true that no one talks about. It's crazy.
It's the secret that Star Trek does not want to talk about here. Their crisis.
The Star Trek Encyclopedia. This is on Memory Alpha that I'm getting this information. The states that the Bozeman was named for the city of Bozeman, Montana, hometown of the writer Brannon Braga, who wrote this episode.
Okay.
And he the registry 1941, NCC 1941, is an homage to the Steven Spielberg film. So that's interesting too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so a little extra information about the Bozeman there.
I feel that we, even though I think I've told you I'm not a Frasier fan, but I feel that we would be remiss if we did not mention one more Frasier Star Trek connection, which is, do you remember the 30th anniversary Star Trek special that was on UPN, and it featured Captain Janeway in command of the rest of the Frasier cast, not Kelsey Grammer, but the rest of them.
That's right.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that. That is, it
If
was like a
you,
little comedy
yes,
bit, and it was really funny. That's right.
yes. So the entire cast of Frasier has been on Star Trek in
Star
one
Trek.
shape or another. Yeah.
And we would be remiss to not point out that there's a further Frasier Star Trek connection, and that's on Drunk Space Nine.
Oh my.
Uh, we do a episode called Drunk Space Niles, which is our Frasier episode. So,
What a smooth segue that was.
yeah, that was
I
well,
set
a
it
lot
all
of
up for
Frasier,
you.
a lot of Frasier stuff going on in the Star Trek universe. Very interestingly, all because of Kelsey Grammer playing Captain Morgan Batesman. Um, let's see what trivia. Let's see. Of course, the memorable quote section: "All hands abandon ship." Repeat: "All hands abandon ship." I wish I could make that my ringtone and attach it to certain situations that might require it. Uh, her steamed milk, Aunt Adele. You already mentioned that, the milk toddy, which, by the
Mhm.
way, there might be a recipe for. What? No, there is not. I feel like the Star Trek merchandising people aren't capitalizing on some of these things, like Aunt Adele's steamed milk recipes and stuff.
Do you think
And
there's a
stuff like,
market for that?
yeah, a tea towel with her recipe on it. I mean, it would be awesome, don't you think? Like, I mean, I'd buy it. Speaking of which, Doctor, thank you for reminding me. Um, I have the crystal. Do you recognize it? The Picard crystal. It sits on his desk in his ready room.
Oh, I was thinking it's the Dark Crystal. I don't know.
The shard. It's the
The
shard. No,
shard.
it's the Picard crystal, and
I don't I
it
don't
came
know.
from it came from the
Oh wow,
The
Roddenberry.
Roddenberry story.
So
Yeah.
what
So
is the crystal
beautiful.
though? I don't know what the crystal is.
Look up the Picard desk crystal. He's like, and now you'll notice. Now you will notice it when you watch um
Next
Star
Generation.
Trek: The Next Generation, because he'll often be holding it in a scene where he's
Really?
contemplating something. Yeah,
I had
and
no idea. Is that's on
yes,
his desk?
it's on his desk, and he's always fondling it. And you definitely have seen him fondling it. You just didn't realize it.
I had no idea.
So yeah,
So
the
they
Picard
sell.
crystal.
Wow.
Let me see if I can get it in the light just right. Here we go. It shimmers look at what
It
it
does.
does.
I can
Like,
see it.
it
Yes.
shimmers really beautifully, and it's made of lead crystal, and it's just uh they recreated it. It's so complex you can't really tell what's going on, you know, on video. It's amazing how it like changes the light and how it bends the light, I should say. But it's a beautiful piece. It's also the most affordable piece on the Picard desk collection. What's that beeping?
That's
That's
Emma.
oh, I
I
was gonna
just
say, is that
I just sorry, babe.
zero
I'll call you in a minute.
zero? That's very temporal too, because she's gonna see this later and be like, "Oh, that's what." That's
That,
so.
that's why he muted me. What? That
That's
fucker.
very timey. It's very timey wimey.
Very
Anyways,
timely.
it's the entry piece, I would say, to the Picard desk collection, because then they have his isolinear chips, and now
Do
they're
they have
also selling.
the thing that goes on his?
No, that should be part of but that's not a desk collection. But they've also released his
But it goes
computer
on the
console.
chair. I
But
mean,
you can also get.
every desk has a chair.
That's true. It's just a table runner. I'm sure we can all get one.
Wow.
Go to Target and buy a table runner and put it on your chair and
Wow. Wow.
No, the Mintakan tapestry is definitely something that should be in the collection, and I would definitely get it too. Actually, the whole chair, but unfortunately, the computer console is like $3,000.
What?
Yeah, it's super expensive, but if you're a collector, I mean, it's exact replica of the prop that was used on the you know, on the thing.
Wow.
Maybe they'll come out with an affordable, less exact replica.
Yeah. Yeah.
That those of us who can't afford that will purchase. But anyways, that little crystal has given me some endless joy. It's fascinating to look at. It sits on my desk now, and I feel a little bit more like Picard in my Picarded. Yeah, and hopefully they'll have. Hopefully the crystal will make it into Old Man Picard. I hope. I really
Old
hope
Man
so.
Picard. One more bit of trivia. Apparently, the producers were interested in getting Christy Alley to reprise her role as Savick in the background, but
how would that have worked?
she could have been on. She was serving aboard the Bozeman.
But it would have gone against. So you would have had.
Well, yeah, it would have been. It would have been. Yeah, because the Bozeman goes
It's
in before.
Robin, and
Yeah,
also it would be
that's
Robin
true.
Curtis that you want that you need to have as.
No. Ah!
Wait,
It
isn't
would have
that
been
who
a
plays
continuity error.
Savick?
It would have been a continuity error.
Right.
You're right. But
Isn't Savick Part 2 Robin Curtis, right? Did I
yeah.
get that right? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But anyways, no, I think it would have been cool. But then they would have had a story about how she got back in time.
That's true. That's true.
Very nice. Let's see what else Memory Alpha has to say about this episode. And I'm not sure why I'm yawning. I probably need a cup of coffee. Brandon Braga commented that this episode is one of the most popular episodes he wrote personally.
I agree.
Yeah.
Are we ready to give it a rating?
Almost. Let me see here. Continuity. This is the third episode in which we see a Galaxy class starship destroyed. Oh, Nurse Ogawa, Alyssa Ogawa's last name is first mentioned in this episode. Her first name was established in Clues, which is another caper.
Oh, that's true.
Picard's Aunt Adele was previously mentioned in Ensign Rowe, so it's this season that Aunt Adele starts appearing.
Rowe had nothing to do in this episode, by the way.
No, she was just there to be Ensign Rowe and have
an episode. No wonder she left the show.
She had a new haircut too.
She did. She did.
She did.
I feel bad for her.
She went on to do a lot of great things. It's okay. The Bozeman's era of 2278 would be set halfway between the events seen in Star Trek the Motion Picture and Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan. So that's why you couldn't have Kirstie Alley.
Right.
Because how would she have appeared in Star Trek II? That's interesting. The wardrobe of Captain Batesman also establishes that Starfleet had switched to the red jacket uniform at least 7 years before the first time the uniform was seen in Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan. The Bozeman was later referenced in the series finale All Good Things, Generations, and First Contact. It's referenced in all of those things. Wow. Picard's line, "We can't afford to start second-guessing ourselves. We should stay on this course until we have reason to change it," is repeated almost...
Did he say that in another episode?
No, it's repeated almost verbatim by Deanna Troi in All Good Things. She specifically says, "I don't think we can start second-guessing ourselves. I think we have to proceed normally and deal with each situation as it occurs."
Because, the other episode that this one reminds me of, which I also love, is the one where they encounter the other Picard, and
Right.
he's out of sync. I love that episode, and
That
this
is a great
episode
episode.
reminds me of that one.
This is the first reference to ejecting the warp core. While it is mentioned many more times, the procedure wasn't actually seen on screen until Voyager cathesis, which makes the first several times the USS Voyager ejected its warp core. The USS Enterprise E ejected its core in Star Trek Insurrection. So I didn't realize that this is the first time we hear about the concept of ejecting the warp core. That's fascinating. Huh.
uh,
All right, now we can go rating. I'll go first, Doctor, as per tradition, since you doubt my ratings. I give this episode a 9. Just not for no other reason than it's awesome. It's like
it is an awesome episode.
There's a lot of reasons I could give to defend the 9, but I think we kind of went over that pretty well in our episode guide. And though it's not like an episode that like has any significant impact, had the show been a serialized show, it would have been cool to have a few episodes obviously readapting the crew of the Bozeman to the future, to their future lives. And who knows, what if a spin-off had occurred as well, which would have apparently been a neat way to kind of like have two shows running, one concurrent, like, I don't know, that part I take back, but the point is that it would have been great to have some follow-ups, which we never get. So despite never seeing the Bozeman again, even though we hear of it, and certainly there's a little bit of expanded universe action going on for the crew and the Bozeman. I just think that like the concept, I remember when it first came out, the episode's concept was awesome, and then the execution is just delightful. I mean, like, it's a really well done job by Jonathan Frakes and the entire production crew and writers. So I think that it deserves its 9. And that's that.
I will join you in that 9. I will give it a 9 as well.
Wow. This is so rare that we align, and that's a good one.
We usually align with the higher rated episodes.
It's true. It's
maybe
true.
No, maybe not, because you give a lot of higher rating. That's not true. That's not true. You usually align with me on my higher rated ones, I think.
This is true. I agree.
but this is one of the better episodes, more memorable episodes of the show. But I have to admit, I am a fan of these little, I've said it, I love little sci-fi mysteries. I loved, like I said, the other two that I just mentioned were the people disappearing and Crusher has to figure it out. I love the one where Picard there's 2 of them. I just like those types of
the mysteries, right?
The sci-fi mysteries. I love them. They're they usually they usually rely a lot on characters, and they're, it's not just the plot, but you also have to have characters with personality that can carry the plot. And in this episode, we see the poker game, which is something that's become a staple of the show. You see a lot of nice little character interactions, like I said, between Picard and Crusher, and you see dynamics that we've become accustomed to and are in some ways subverted, because, like I said, one of the best things about the episode is that it is in fact Data, whom 9 times out of 10 he's the one that's right, and everybody defers to him.
Right.
He's the one that's wrong in this case, and that's why they exploded. And he even calls attention to it himself. So I think it's great that the episode subverts it subverts the typical Next Generation storyline formula.
Yeah.
I mean, Data's wrong. The Enterprise keeps blowing up at every commercial break. I mean, it's a very atypical
in
story.
essence in essence, even though the episode deals with the concept of deja vu, it is in fact, when it first aired, the opposite, which is known as jamais vu, the French word meaning never seen. So
Oh, there we go.
fancy closing thoughts here
Fancy
on
schmancy. Oui, oui.
fancy fancy closing thoughts here on Starfleet Boy. Doctor, I really appreciate you joining me today. It was really fun talking about this episode and kind of getting into the little nitty gritty ideas behind it. And I'm glad we concluded the same on our ratings. Is there anything you'd like to close with that you're promoting or anything? Since now these are like a lot more timely in their airing. Are there any thoughts? And have you seen the trailer for season 2 of Star Trek Discovery? Are you excited at all? Do you have anything to say?
I have nothing to say. I have not seen the trailer, and I frankly am not excited. I don't care.
Oh, such a bummer.
Yeah,
But
I'm not
the good
interested
news
in
is,
Spock number 3. Sorry,
what's that?
I'm not interested in Spock number 3.
Uh, Come on. He's Lumberjack Spock. He's awesome.
You
We're
can keep him.
gonna. That's what everyone says to me when I say that. Um, I don't know what's going on here. No, I'll of course report when it comes out. The first short treks wasn't as exciting as I would have liked, so we're not off to a great start. but we'll see how the second short treks goes. Anyways, that's all we've got, folks. Please feel free to comment below. I know I'm a little behind on responding to some of your comments, but I'm getting there. So please be patient with me. And also, I'd like to say hello, since we cannot say goodbye without saying hello to Fraser Secret, who is one of our. So this is a funny story. I actually don't know his real name, but there's an audience member named Fraser Secret that started out on
Oh,
Drunk Space Nine.
I thought it was a
His
sponsor for the show or
no,
something.
his handle is Fraser Secret. He started out on Drunk Space Nine. He listened to Drunk Space Nine 3 times
Hmm.
in a row. Like he loved it that much. And
Wow.
he might be my new co-host for Rogue Drunk Space Nine. We'll see. But anyways,
Rogue. Drunk
Rogue. It might be
Space
going rogue.
Nine.
Yeah, there
Indeed.
might be a rogue. Yeah, I got
Oh
full
my
permission
God.
in one of the episodes of Drunk Space Nine. I get permission to do Rogue Drunk Space Nine, so
Wow.
I might use that permission. But anyways, he now, because there's no Drunk Space Nine, it's on a indefinite hiatus. Uh, he's now watching episodes of TNG and then listening to the Starfleet Boy from the beginning. So he's got his work cut out for him. But he's been commenting on episodes that he's watched, and so we welcome him aboard. He's a new member of the Starfleet Boy crew.
All right.
100 some odd episodes later, he'll finally hear this and he'll be like, "Oh my gosh!" And it ties into the whole time
I
aspect.
gotta
So
mention. Cool. That's cool.
Or he may be embarrassed that he got a mention. I'm not sure. But anyways, Doctor, live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper, sir.
And we'll see you next time. Bye bye.